Hi again, everyone. Welcome into Unanchored Boston with Bob Lobel. I'm Mike Lynch, and as always, we are brought to you by Cold Springs RV, your destination for all things camping. And where? We're in New Hampshire, of course, in the great George Gray, the big wheel we call him, the George Gray's Lexington Toyota, 409 Mass Ave in Lexington. Well, we're approaching the Ides of August, as they say. Football season is here, and we'll be here until February. And who better to kick off our football coverage of this season than the great Ron Borges and Bob Lobel. Take it away at the formal introduction.
Well, we love Ronnie because he's so controversial and he's so outspoken. He's just himself. He's a real guy, and he worked for the Globe and the Herald and knows more about Boston sports than most people I've ever met. So it's great to have him back, but it's just the start of football season. So my first question to you, Ron Borges, is what did you think of the statue?
That was a little tall. The thing my criticism is that I just think those kinds of statues, why is a guy like Tom Brady getting a statue? Because of the things he did as a football player, right? So rather than have a statue of him hailing a cab, why don't we have him throwing the football like the Marino one or the Flutie one at BC, where he's clearly chucking the most famous pass in Boston college history. I would have rather seen him kind of, in a real sort of quarterback's position or, making the throws that won all those championships. So I thought that part was a little weird, and didn't think it had to be quite so. I mean, it's right up there with the George Washington statue at the public gardens in terms of massive size. It's like father of our country. So I thought that was a little much, but it was good that he came and gave a nice speech and all that. Fans were happy. But 17 feet's a lot of Tom Brady. That's for sure.
What would you like to have seen, Ron? Would you like to, just speak one moment, would you like to have seen helmet on rather than helmet off?
Yeah, to me, football players, they have their hats on and they're playing football. And, what was he most famous for? Passing the football. And to me, that's kind of what I would have liked to see. Most of these, what do you see Bobby Orr, diving after the greatest score in the history of hockey? In my opinion, the greatest player ever played hockey. If you look at Michael Jordan's statue in Chicago, he's soaring through the air. He's not, waving to his Aunt Louise in the stands. So I didn't quite get the waving thing, have them do what they're doing, I mean, if you're going to have a statue of Ted Williams, don't you want him in his stance or his follow through? I don't know if I want him tipping his cap, which is not something he was famous for. So I don't know. What do you guys think? I mean, I just thought it was a little bit.
When the shroud was on it, I was trying to figure out. It came to a sharp apex, and I said, "Well, it can't be his head." So something's going. So my imagination was wondering, and my wife loved it because she got to see Tom Brady's hair was. His hair was perfect. Who takes their helmet off at any level, and their hair is perfect? Jimmy Johnson. Nobody else has perfect hair. So that kind of hair should be mussed up. I don't know.
All I know is that I saw a post on Facebook when a woman took a picture of the backside of the statue, basically his ass, and said it was the best part of the whole thing. And there were plenty of people. There were plenty of other people, mostly women, at least by their names, who seemed to agree with it. So,
well, somebody did mention also. I haven't been down to see it. I'm actually going to go down this week and take a look at it. But I did see some posts and things about that. People saying that the head was too small in comparison to the rest of the statue. If that's true, that would be completely backwards because, what was the key to his success? It was his head more than his arm or his legs or anything else. He was smarter than everybody else and he studied harder than everybody else and hence produced more than everybody else. So if that's true, I'll reserve judgment on the size of his head until I see it. But that's what
I can't believe we're sitting here analyzing a statue. A 7-foot statue.
That's what we do now. We analyze everything.
I know. We should be so lucky, right? Seriously.
The other question
we have plenty of statues around town with Auerbach and all those other guys, Russell and all those other guys that you talked about, Bird and Orr and blah blah blah. So I mean, we're in the statue
Right.
business, but everybody else is too.
Yeah, if
My
you sit next to Red, I mean, he's the same size. He's the same size Red's supposed to be. If you sit next to Brady, you feel like you're 4 years old based on his stature.
So here's my question, Ron. When does the Belichick statue come out?
It was funny you say that, Mike, because that thought did cross my mind a number of times. And my guess is it's going to take a while, probably a long while. And I would postulate that it better happen before Bob crosses over to the other side, because I'm not too sure his son is going to be building any statues of Bill Belichick or Bill Parcells for that time.
Speaking of Bob Kraft,
they could have done the two of them together. They could have done the two of them together, like talking to each other, like on the sidelines, like you would during a game.
Yes.
Then he could have taken his helmet off, and it would have looked kind of okay. That makes sense.
Well, now that we're talking about when is Kraft ever going to get into the Pro Football Hall of Fame? Now, I know you're on the committee. You're one of the committees. Is he going to get into the Pro Football Hall of Fame or not?
Who? You cut out there for a sec.
RKK.
Will he ever get into the Hall of Fame?
I'm not on that committee. I know from what members of that committee have told me, he's going in the wrong direction. He was a finalist a couple times, and this past year, my understanding is he was out after the first round. So I think I've felt all along, and I'm not saying anything I haven't told them directly, that they're really chasing this in the wrong manner. It's not about, from an ownership standpoint, in my mind, it's not about we won this many games and we won this many Super Bowls, because the owner doesn't really have that much to do with it. He really doesn't show. It's like the president gets all kind of credit or criticism depending on how things are going for the economy, when he has very little control over the economy. It's other factors and other things that you don't get Tom Brady. None of this stuff happens. And it doesn't mean that he didn't save football for New England, which he did. And I always thought that was really the best argument for Bob Kraft, was that he, A, saved football for New England, B, prevented a bloodshed. If the Patriots had moved to St. Louis, they were going to have to realign the league. And that was just going to be open warfare amongst the owners on who would have to move, because NBC was very upset that, now we're going to lose Boston for St. Louis, and we got Indianapolis, and we got Jacksonville, and the other side's got Chicago and New York and Los Angeles. So that was going to be a big problem. And also his efforts, both TV contracts, although every owner seems to try to take credit for something that three of us could have negotiated pretty easily, to be honest. And also his efforts to kind of bring the two labor and management sides together during the lockout, which of course the owners created. The players really had nothing to do with that. But Kraft was an important sort of voice of reason during that discussion. So I thought that was a really strong case for him. I think when you base it on the outcome, the performance of your team, well, unfortunately for him, and fortunately for Jerry Jones, Jones got in when their Super Bowl victories were still sort of fresh, even though it had been a while. In Kraft's case, ever since Brady left, it's lose more, and show no real signs of life. So how great is your management really? Was it really about your management abilities, or was it about the fact you got lucky on the 199th pick of the draft? So I thought strategically that was a mistake. I think he's still a live candidate, but I do think his chances have been reduced. And the other thing you have to remember is, if you're going to take credit for your great management skills, then you also got to take credit for the two biggest fines in the history of professional football for cheating. You can't have it both ways. You can't say, I was in charge when everything good happened and we won Lombardi trophies. Oh, but these massive cheating scandals didn't know a thing about it. And I'm not saying he did or he didn't, but you just that's something that has to be faced with. And I think that there are other candidates out there, which is the other thing that we tend to forget, depending on what city we're from and what candidate we're talking about. There's other candidates. I mean, the guy that was put up this year was the co-founder, basically the founder of the National Football League, and he didn't get in. So if you're not going to put in the guy who, called the meeting to form the league, well, then everybody's going to have a difficult time. And of course, as you guys know, they've changed the manner in which it's done now. They used to be, in recent years, put in separately. It was just an up or down vote on whatever that candidate was. Now it's them, coaches, and senior candidates. So you're asking people to vote for a non-player over a player. And I can only speak for myself, but 9 times out of 10, I vote for players over everybody else. Players make the league. So I guess he's in trouble, I guess is what I would say.
Yeah, I was going to. I think he is in trouble. And the other thing that gets mentioned is that he tried to move this team to Connecticut. I mean, yes. he did everything within his power to try with that Governor Rowland, I think his name was. They had a site picked out for the stadium and this and that, but that seems to get forgotten. People have amnesia when it comes to that. But these very well could be the New England Patriots. We could be schlepping down to Hartford every 3 times a week for practice, press interviews, and everything else.
Yeah, no, you're right, Mike, and it has been totally forgotten. And what's also was forgotten that he sold the guy down the river to boot. The guy at the last second, he pulled the rug out from underneath him, and it was part of the reason he didn't get reelected. So it was kind of a dirty deal and then a dirty double deal. But you're right, it never gets mentioned. And I'm sure it's not being mentioned in that room, although I'm not in there. As I say, I'm not on that committee. But it's a good point. I mean, he was willing to do that. Now, he'll tell you, well, it was just leverage, and I was never actually going to do it. Well, I don't know. You had everything but a shovel in the ground, and you cut the tape, as I remember, right? They had a big meeting in Hartford outdoors with the mayor, the governor, and the mayor and all that. So you're right. He could have easily saved football for New England, but not for Boston.
Yeah.
And then the fans would be interesting. Then what are the fans saying? Are they screaming and yelling he should be in the Hall of Fame? No, they're saying he should be in the Hall of Iniquity. So it'll be interesting to see. He's only got a couple more years. Yeah, that's right. And he's only got a couple more years really as a viable candidate because in theory he could go forever. They could put him in 25 years from now. But you usually run out of steam. Art Modell had a lot of momentum for a while, but he could never recover from leaving Cleveland high and dry, despite hundreds and hundreds of weeks of sellouts to move to Baltimore for a better payday. And that haunts him to this day, even though there's a whole generation that doesn't even remember they were ever in Cleveland or that, or that Cleveland ever went a period of time with no team. So you got to strike when the iron's hot, and I'm not sure they did.
Has the PR campaign by the Patriots softened ever since someone brought it up? Really, it was irritating a lot of people a couple of years ago, right?
Yes. To the best of my knowledge, it has. I was never part of that. They never lobbied me one way or the other. I don't know if they figured they had my vote or if they figured this guy just does what he wants anyway, so I'm not going to bother with him. I'm not exactly sure. But yeah, I mean, a lot of voters felt, especially not initially, but after a while, that there was some strong arming going on that they didn't like. And that's never a good idea. There's ways to do it. Obviously, there's campaigns that are run and all of that, which is a very recent phenomenon. When I first got on that committee almost 25 years ago, there was really none of that. The case was presented by whatever one of the voters was assigned to present the case for the player, coach, whatever. And then you debated it and you voted. In recent years, there's been a sort of increasing pressure, outside pressure from all different factors. And certainly Kraft's crew ratcheted it up too far, I think. And I think there was some blowback against that for a while. It's almost like, you're violating your oath of office if you don't see that the hall's just not the same if it doesn't have a bust of Bob Kraft in there. And I know there were voters who were offended by it. Now they deny it. They claim that they didn't really think they pushed too hard, but clearly they were wrong.
You think the orchids of Asia had any effect in this? Not.
I think maybe 1 year it did. I mean, overall, no. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, the beauty of Pro Football Hall of Fame over the others is it's supposed to just be what happened, within the lines. Now, we all know human nature is what it is, but for the most part, I mean, look, I voted for guys who I wouldn't allow to drive by my house, let alone come into my house. And I voted against some guys that I liked a lot, because I just didn't think they quite, And so I think that's most people. And I always use Warren Sapp's story as an example. Warren Sapp was a great defensive tackle and a miserable human being in 1,000 ways that I could tell you. But the guy who presented him was from Tampa. And he did one of the best presentations ever, because I've always felt that if you are presenting a candidate, like at some point in time, if I'm still on the committee, I'll have to present the case for Brady, which should be easy enough. But there is an issue about the cheating scandal and missing cell phones and all that you're better off, in my opinion, if you got bad news, better that you present it to the committee than that somebody else brings it up and now you're, on the defensive. And this guy knew this with Sapp. And so he stood up and he said, look, there's nobody in this room who had more problems with Warren Sapp than I did. I covered the guy for, his whole career. He said, but here's the truth of Warren Sapp. 6 days a week, he was a horse's ass. And the 7th day, he was a Hall of Famer. And everybody laughed. And that was the end of the issue of if anybody had one with Sapp. And I think that's generally the way the voters look at it. So I think that first year that it happened, there was a bit of a shock factor. And now you're really going to put the guy in, the same time he, gets pulled over by the state police for going to a whorehouse. But after that, I haven't really heard much mention of it. There's a lot worse sins in the Hall of Fame than that. That's for damn sure.
How many wins for this team this year?
That's a good question. I was talking to somebody about that yesterday. I'm not sure what the over/under is.
I think it's 7.5.
7.5.
7.5. I think, you guys both know, you've known me a long time. I have nothing but respect for the guys who crunch the numbers in Vegas. So I say 7.5. They're pretty much on the number. I think they have a very easy schedule. So I would probably lean toward 8. But, someone can go haywire. I don't think it's going to be 4. I'll tell you that much. I think that'll improve. One of the things I thought there wasn't much impressive about the first preseason game, in my opinion. I mean, obviously that kick return was impressive. But, the Redskins basically were waving the white flag before they even got on the field, They didn't put any players out there. So it's hard to judge. But one thing that wasn't hard to judge was just the operation. They didn't have tons of mental errors. They didn't have guys lining up in the wrong spot. They didn't have to call timeout because they only had 10 guys on the field or they had 12 guys on the field. The quarterback wasn't looking around for a place call, right up till the last second. So I thought the operation was pretty smooth, even though they had, a lot of guys that are going to be working for, driving for Amazon in the fall. So I thought that was a good sign of just overall way that the Vrabel's got them going. I didn't think the offense looked particularly good, but it's early and it's a complicated offense, so that takes a while. So my guess would be somewhere around 7 wins, which is nearly double. That's pretty good.
We had Ordway on last week, and Lynch and myself and Ordway all agreed it would be 8. Not that means anything. I'm just saying that's what we thought.
Yeah, I think you guys are right around that sort of number. If they hit the right thing a couple times in terms of opponents coming in with a significant injury or something, it can go one way. They could suffer some injuries. I don't think they certainly don't have the depth yet in a lot of positions that you need to survive long term. But they're not facing the iron for the most part. And I think that the AFC East is down. I mean, the Jets should be better. I think the Dolphins are going to be worse. I think Buffalo will still win a division because of the quarterback, but they're less than they were. in my opinion. They're kind of losing that window is starting to close down. It's not winter in Buffalo yet, but it's getting toward late fall. You know what I'm saying? Pulling the window down. So that's an advantage for them, I think. And we'll see how the whole operation goes. In the end, it'll come down to the quarterback and in many regards, and how efficient the offense is or is not.
Yeah, I would. What I sort of was buying it. Okay, there's a whole new attitude here. Vrabel's in. He's getting in a fight, breaking up a fight during a thing with Washington on Wednesday or whatever day it was. And I said, oh, there's a lot of reason to have optimism. And then I saw Drake Maye try to force that pass, which turned into a fumble, was turned into a touchdown, I think. I can't remember. And I said, oh, yeah, right. We just watched the whole year of that last year. Are we in for another year of this crap again? Here we go. This guy does not have – he doesn't know how to take a sack. He doesn't know how to get down and hit the ground yet. He still tries to force things that aren't there.
Right. They're right. And that's a major issue. There's no question about it. He needs to do a deep dive instead of film work and read The Art of War.
Yeah.
You attack when they expect you to retreat, and you retreat when they expect you to attack. I mean, when you're surrounded and outnumbered, you don't attack. It's just pretty simple. You want to be a successful general or field general. And you guys have heard me say it before and on your shows that I don't fall in love with the first date, So, I mean, I'm not in love with Drake Maye. I don't hate him either. I heard some guys on the radio last week talking about how he's a top 10 quarterback. Like, in what league? I'm not sure he's top 10 in the SEC, but he's definitely not top 10 in the NFL. What are you talking about? The upside, I thought, from his first season was he can make all the throws that you have to make. Yeah. There's no throw that his arm just can't make. That's the good news. The question I have is, and I use this guy as a cautionary tale, is he going to be the next, very solid high B, low A quarterback, or is he going to be Jameis Winston, who is the king of 400-yard games that he loses because he makes some bonehead play at some point in the game that costs him the game? I mean, Jameis Winston is, in my opinion, more talented than Drake Maye, but he can't help himself. He has suicidal tendencies, that go back to college. I remember in his case, a good scout friend of mine was going on and on one day to me about Jameis Winston when he was coming out of Florida State. He's this and he's that and he's great in the fourth quarter and all these great comebacks. And I said, yeah, Jimmy, that's all true. But the reason they needed all those comebacks is what he did in the first three quarters. He goes, well, it's a pretty good point. And that's what he was in pro football. I mean, you guys have all seen Jameis Winston. There's games you'll see him say, man, this guy, you can go all the way with this guy. And then the next week he's throwing the ball behind his back left-handed to a tackle. What are you doing? And that play with Drake Maye was a bonehead play. That was
absolutely
a bonehead play.
Absolutely.
I thought those.
What happened so early? That's why it was even more magnified. You were expecting, well, let's see what this guy's going to do. Your expectations were pretty high, and then bang, he does that. I mean, it happened really early in the game. So it was right.
Has Josh McDaniels not been?
Yeah, the problem with bonehead plays. The problem.
Yeah, I mean, I got to think they've been beating it in.
You can get beat in the first quarter with a bonehead play. It doesn't have to be. I'm sure he has. And well, I think this season, Mike, you'll find out whether Maye is more Jameis Winston than Tom Brady or vice versa. Because rookie year, okay, you're excited. You're used to always making the plays. You've been a star everywhere you went since you were 10, so forth. So after a year of bonehead plays, you should learn, hey, there's some things I can't do. There really are some things I can't do. And I have to recognize those situations before I try to do something that'll kill our team. Brett Favre, as great as he was, would do some of that. Now, sometimes that's a reaction to the team around you. In other words, my team isn't good enough. I have to try to do something. Maye's not that kind of, in my opinion, he's not that kind of quarterback. He's not Peyton Manning. He's not Brett Favre, and he's not going to be. So he has to step it down and be more Brady-esque and realize, sometimes the best play I can make is no play.
Yeah. Right.
I tell my kids all the time, don't make a decision if you don't have to. Don't rush off the edge of the bridge when you don't have to leap. Sometimes you got to leap, but not that often. And I think that Maye doesn't understand that. And the other thing with Drake Maye that never gets mentioned, at least I seldom hear it, he's 1-9 as a starter. Well, okay, the guys around him weren't great. Maybe the coaches weren't great. But if you're the quarterback of a 1-9 team, you bear some significant responsibility for that record. And a lot of it was these kinds of mistakes. I know Vrabel talked about it, basically call it a bonehead play himself. So I'm sure he's being drilled every day between Josh and Mike. But Mike, you were a player. Your dad was a coach. Some guys under pressure, that's what they do. And in fact, there's a lot more of those guys than there are guys who don't, which is why you look at somebody as talented as Jameis Winston, or you look at Jeff George from back in the day, who had one of the best arms you've ever seen. But he was a coach killer.
Yeah.
Because he'd throw it to the other team at the worst time. I know I can put it between those three defenders. Oh, I don't think you can. And that's what or when you just got to take a sack. I mean, what was he doing with the ball? I mean, that's the first thing I would have asked him. What are you doing? Were you, bounce pass? I mean, what the heck were you thinking? Or not?
Hey, Ronnie, I know you think Gostkowski was a better kicker than Vinatieri. At least that's what you said before. I didn't say a lot better, but I think you said Gostkowski probably was a better kicker than Vinatieri. But on the other hand, Vinatieri was there and had some amazing clutch kicks. He was there in the first Super Bowl. He was there in the snow game. He was there on many different occasions. Yet he's pretty much disappeared from view with the Patriots. And that to me is, I mean, if you're going to put a smaller statue next to Brady, it would either be Belichick or Vinatieri, and I would opt for Vinatieri. I mean, I think he was that much of a contributor to the success of this team as anybody. Well, I shouldn't say that, with one or two exceptions. He was as important to this team as almost anybody.
Oh, I agree. I think you got me mistaken for someone else. I never felt that Gostkowski was a better kicker than
I thought
he
you
had
said
a stronger
that,
leg. No, he had a stronger leg, but so did Mike Lynch, but he was not necessarily
27 feet, no. Mike Lynch.
Right. I mean, the thing with Adam is that Gostkowski didn't have was he
didn't have one of these, Ron.
He did not have one. I had one of those back in the day, believe it or not.
Back in the day, square toe, right?
Yeah. That's right. That's right. It was a great invention. Not as good as the side of your foot, as it turns out, but pretty good.
It doesn't kick 70-yard field goals.
No, but Vinatieri, just had command of the biggest moments. If you remember in the Carolina Super Bowl, he didn't have a great day, except when the game was on the line, and then it was right down the middle, like it was shot, out of a cannon. And I made the case for him last year at the Hall of Fame. I'm not a big advocate for first ballot Hall of Famers. I think it's overblown in terms of its importance. It's sort of like your GPA in college. Anybody ask you in the last 40 years you've been at work what your GPA was at college, or even where you went to college?
Thankfully, no.
Yeah, exactly. But I think with Adam, I thought you could make, and I thought I did make a strong case for him. He was the best nominee last year by a mile, even though he didn't.
Yeah, well, why didn't he can't even get in the Patriots Hall of Fame, for Christ's sake?
Yeah, well, I brought that up during the meeting. Unfortunately, it's to a degree turned into a popularity contest, and my fear was if Edelman was on the ballot, Edelman would get it, and that's exactly what happened. Even though he certainly should not have gotten it over Adam Vinatieri. I mean, they don't win those Super Bowls without Adam Vinatieri, not simply because he made those tremendous kicks, but because he allowed Brady and the offense and the offensive coordinator to play conservatively in many, many instances because they were so sure he's going to make the kick.
Good point.
So we don't have to move it all the way down the field to the 25-yard line for him to make the kick. He can make the kick from the 50-yard line, 47-yard line, 48-yard line, no matter the pressure, which he did repeatedly. And he was the only player in the 15 finalists last year at the Hall of Fame. And this is one of the points I made. There was they picked that 100-year anniversary team, and he was the only player who was eligible last year for the Hall of Fame who was on that list. So how do we not put in a guy who this blue ribbon committee of Belichick's and Ron Wolf's and all these other football mavens select as the best players? And in his case, there were two kickers. So Adam Vinatieri was picked by this committee as one of the two best players to ever play his position, ever in the history of football. And we're not putting him in, and we're putting in, good players. But there's a difference between good players and a guy like that. He was he was all the boxes, all decade player, all pro, all this, all that. And if that same committee did, I think it was the 50 most memorable plays in football history. And he was on the list twice. What do you got to do to get in the Hall of Fame? The fact that he's not going into the Patriots Hall of Fame, I'm hoping very much that he will make it into the Pro Football Hall of Fame this year. For him to be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame and not yet in the Teams Hall of Fame,
Right.
In
That
my
would
opinion, it's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. I mean,
right. And I think it's because he left. Fans around here, 50% of whom are probably divorced since the stat. They left, and this guy can't leave his football team. I mean, it's just he left because they wouldn't pay him. And when he went to Indianapolis, Tony Dungy was smarter than your average duck and made him a really good offer, but said, when you leave the door here, the offer's off the table.
Yeah.
So you either you're not taking it back to your team and shop around. You either take the deal today, and we're happy to have you, or you go back to New England with.
You know what? And I think he still was so. I don't know whether Kraft. I know Lynch is on the local Hall of Fame committee. Okay, and I know the process and everything else. But that to me is just a sham, because if Kraft wants to put somebody in the Hall of Fame, he'll put him in the Hall of Fame, whether it's Parcells or Brady or whomever. And he could have put Vinatieri in too. He wouldn't have had to go through the whole song and dance of going through the committee, because he's going to put somebody in if he wants to get him in.
Right.
That to me that pisses me off beyond belief. Nothing against the committee, Lynchy. It's not your fault. It's an honor to be on that committee. It's just that it's a show. It's a show piece.
I agree with you. What really pissed me off about Parcells going in this year is going in as a contributor. He contributed. He coached. All right. He didn't contribute. Contribute means like, okay, you get the apples for the team after the game. You
blow you take the air out of the football.
He coached. He's not a contributor. He's a damn coach. Just say he's going in as the coach of the Patriots.
Right. Right. I think I mean, I had a little trouble with that too. The problem for Bill was, as I understand it at least, was that he was on the ballot a number of times, and the fans killed him.
Yeah,
the fans killed him. And why did the fans kill him? Because the team poisoned the water when he left and made it look like. I mean, Lynch, you and you too, Bob. You guys both know Parcells well. The idea that he wasn't totally focused on winning that Super Bowl game, because he was may or may not have been already talking to another team. If you know Parcells at all, is ridiculous in every way. I mean, the guy would have chewed nails to win that game. I mean, but he didn't win it. Now, I've told him this privately, so I'm not saying anything I haven't said to his face. The choice not to fly back with the team was a bad mistake.
Yeah,
it was a bad mistake. But Bledsoe didn't fly back either, and I've told him the same thing. It was a bad mistake. I get it, and quite frankly, if I'm honest, I'm probably with them. If I'm in that same situation, I probably don't fly back either. I probably don't go to the parade. There ain't no parade for me. I'm out of here. so I understand the mindset. But as a guy who's made one or two mistakes, public mistakes in his life, I would say not the smartest thing. Having said that, you're right, Lynch. I mean, who's kidding who? Contributor. He was a coach who really saved the franchise from going broke.
Absolutely.
And really laid the foundation for everything that followed. And Bob Kraft would never have met Bill Belichick or known a thing about him if Parcells hadn't talked him into letting him bring Belichick, back to New England as an assistant coach. Now, Belichick tried to rewrite the history, how he could have gone here and he could have gone there. He was unemployable at that time.
Yeah.
Parcells saved his ass.
I got to do this commercial. I got to do my campers thing, but I want to say the greatest thing would be for Vinatieri to get into the Pro Football Hall of Fame and not the Patriots Hall of Fame.
Well, that'd be like Parcells, but the same thing.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Okay,
crazy.
Ronnie,
I think there's a good chance of it, Bob.
Do you do camping, Ronnie? You want to do camping? Maybe you should.
Believe it or not, I'm not exactly a hunter and gatherer guy.
It's kind of. It's all right. It's kind of that's kind of what it's in our blood, hunter gatherers. But I want to say, and I was watching this special last night. I was on PBS about the great national parks and Ken Burns, who does amazing work. And this was a great, PBS and Ken Burns are just great. But it had the national parks, and I'm thinking camping and taking out and visiting all these national parks, no matter where they are, including the Florida Everglades or Yosemite or Carlsbad Caverns or any of these places that you want to go, Sequoia.
Orchids of Asia in a national park?
No, it's not, but I think they're trying to get it named one. I think it's Florida, so anything's possible. We know that. And it's close to Mar-a-Lago, so anything is really possible. And I saw your post today, Ronnie, by the way. Okay. Campers, that's another story for another time. Campers, it is back. Summer sell-off event is happening this weekend at Cold Springs RV. First come, first serve for must-move deals on travel trailers, fifth wheels, motorhomes, and more. Go see the Grand Canyon in style. The sooner you visit, the more you will see, not only in the national parks, but at Cold Springs RV. You'll always shop pressure-free. Think about it. If you've never seen the Grand Canyon, you're missing something. Sedona, all these places in Arizona. Cold Springs RV in Ware, New Hampshire. Little old Ware, New Hampshire. Ware is in north of Tingsboro, west of Goffstown. Tell them Lobel and Lynchy and Borges, if I don't mind telling you, sent you. Learn more at coldspringsrv.com. I'm telling you, you're missing it out if you don't go to these national parks in a camper. All right, I'm done. Shut up, Bob.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, Bob, before you change the subject. If I was going in one of those campers from Cold Springs, I'd go camp because it's like just putting my house on wheels. It's great. You got everything you need and things you
everything
don't
you need. You know what? You can have relationships with other campers, and then you can leave.
There you go.
There's all kinds of freedom. It's freedom. All right, go ahead.
All right, so here's the deal. We went through this before. Your good friend John Madden didn't like to fly, so you had the Madden cruiser. So Cold Springs RV is going to make us a Lobel Lynchy cruiser, and since we don't pay, there we go. Since we don't pay our guests, shocker, we're going to let you use the Lobel Lynchy cruiser for a week. Get to drive across country. We'll fly you back. The deal with you have to pick somebody to ride shotgun with you, but the person has to be, since you're a Hall of Fame voter, the person has to be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Can be alive, deceased, past, present, but someone from the Pro Football Hall of Fame who you would pick to ride shotgun with you cross country.
Wow. Well, because I'm a party kind of guy, Ken Stabler, because we'd have a great. I wouldn't learn much of anything. We'd have a great trip.
Wow, that was
cross. But I'll tell you, other than that, I would like to have. I'd like to have Upton Bell's dad, Bert Bell, commissioner of pro football from 1946 to his passing in 1959. He really laid the foundation of a lot of what pro football is about, including national TV contract and and revenue sharing. He had been a great player himself. I believe he threw the first touchdown pass in the Rose Bowl when he played there for Penn. Was by his own admittance a failed coach, but coached in pro football, and then was owner of the Eagles, of course, before he became the commissioner. I think he's a fascinating guy. And if he's anything like his son, he can talk. So that's
and he put in the draft. The pro football college.
Yes, he created the draft, which is probably the single biggest influence on all professional sports leagues, is the creation of the draft, which he came up with, number one, but also had to convince powerful owners like George Halas, who didn't need the draft, or the Mara brothers, to accept it, because they could sign all the best players, because they had the most money, which is why they were winning all the time. And they did accept it. He was able to convince them. Tremendous. And it was also, of course, utterly illegal. So he had to, talk his way around a few congressmen to get that thing.
Well, maybe if he
approved. And of course, who was the?
Go ahead. Go ahead and finish, Ronnie. I'm sorry. You got that? I didn't mean to interrupt you. That was not a strong interruption. Guess it was. You're still there, Ronnie? So
I lost you there for a second, Bob. But
I was going to say, if you had Burt Bell going with you and he'd insist on Upton driving, would that be okay?
I'm not sure I want Upton driving anywhere.
I don't know.
But there's so many fascinating. Yeah, there's so many fascinating characters in the Hall of Fame. Some of those old players from the 50s. Johnny Unitas would be fascinating, although he wasn't the most talkative guy in the world. But just the league, the makeup of the league, and how it was in those formative days. People can't even recognize today what the league was in the 50s or 60s.
Wow.
Certainly, Burt Bell. When Burt Bell, the owners wanted to stop playing during World War II because they didn't have enough players, and they feared that attendance would be low. And it was Burt Bell who could. There we go. Great book. Who wrote that book?
Right. Written by
Upton Bell's history. It's basically a history of the NFL through the eyes.
And his dad died at halftime of a game, right? He died at halftime of Franklin Field
Eagles game, right, where he had played as a player and coached as a coach, and he had kept the league office in Philadelphia because that's where he was from. And Upton was at the game. Upton was 20 years old at the game, and there was. Imagine this today: Burt Bell would sit in the stands amongst the fans.
Go to the other side of halftime.
And at one point would always, and he would at one point end up with a bunch of his friends. And a friend of Upton's noticed commotion in the stands, and Upton looked over and realized that was the area where his dad tended to be near the ends of games, and saw a man down in a brown suit, which his dad was wearing that day and often wore. And he realized that was likely his dad, and sprinted from the stands across the field. There he is. There's Upton in his helmet to the left, and got to his side and rode with him to the hospital. Little side effect there that very few people knew: the NFL that day almost lost Art Rooney as well, the Steelers owner, because he was running outside the stadium to get a cab to go to the hospital, and nearly got hit by a cable car going by, which would have changed the history of football, obviously. And then, of course, his dad, Burt Bell, passed, and that's when Pete Rozelle got elected, I believe, on the 33rd ballot. It was the longest vote in history to come up with a new commissioner. He was 33 years old. It may have been a few less than that because he was also 33. I may be getting the numbers messed up, but it was many, many ballots. Because a lot of people didn't think a 33-year-old PR guy of the Los Angeles Rams should be running the league, but it turned out to be a brilliant selection.
Yeah, it was. I threw a touchdown pass at Franklin Field.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really?
My one and only touchdown pass I threw was in Franklin Field.
How long?
Tell us the story.
What is it? Was it a flat?
No, it was
a screen pass.
No, it was a thing where it was they're in man coverage, and one of our guys in motion took the bait and followed the motion gun. And I just threw to the tight end and kicked 3 extra points, but I missed 2 field goals that game too.
Who was the
So and
team?
they were chip shots.
Who are you playing? Penn?
Huh?
Penn.
Playing Penn?
Yeah, Penn, the Quakers.
Wow!
Well, congratulations.
You left with a victory, but despite the errant kicks, I assume.
Yeah, we won 21-3, but yeah,
There we go.
got
There
the W.
we go.
So let me bring this back. Why is Bob Kraft starting a verbal war with Bill Belichick now, saying that he took a chance on this? Why would he even bring that up and make it a public statement?
You know, that's a good question, Mike, to which I don't really have a great answer, except that Belichick, since he left, has, he wrote that book in which he mentioned everybody in the world except Bob Kraft.
Yeah.
Thanked everybody in the world except for Bob Kraft. I just think that both of them have such fragile egos, which is hard to fathom. Or maybe it's more self-image than it is egos. They got big egos, but they're just two insecure guys. I mean, why would Belichick feel the need when he's walking in some event with his new girlfriend to, wear those 10 rings on his fingers and the jacket that said he was, one of the coaches on the 100th anniversary team? Really? I mean, you need that, honestly.
Hey, one other thing, Ronnie, why didn't Brady mention Bell? I know he did a little phone thing about Belichick, a joke. He mentioned his name, but it's just
right.
Wait a minute, I got a call from Belichick. But he didn't mention his name during the ceremony. He mentioned coaches.
Well, I don't think. Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I don't feel that everybody's duty bound to mention Belichick's name every time something happens.
Well, I know, but this is.
their life.
But don't you think Brady and Belichick are inextricably entwined? I mean, wouldn't you have thought that?
Well, sure, but that doesn't mean it's a love fest, and that doesn't mean that.
I know. I'm just saying. I just thought it was a little strange.
Yeah. I mean, he gave him plenty of props last year when he went into the Patriots Hall of Fame, and he's mentioned him before. But I think that you don't have to give a guy credit every time for giving you a chance. I mean, why did he give him a chance? Because his quarterback got blown up and couldn't function. That's the only reason he gave him a chance. He wasn't. That myth that he was ready to put Belichick in the game is bullshit. Pardon my language. He wasn't, and not that he was happy with Bledsoe, because he wasn't. But I've talked to a lot of the coaches on that staff, and nobody was thinking that it was about time we put Tom Brady in the game. It just wasn't the truth. Now, it worked out great, and he did a great job with them, and they did a great job together, and they'll always be joined. Really kind of the longest running coach quarterback thing in the NFL history in terms of success. But it ended badly, like it probably always was going to, because I don't think there was really an evil guy there from Belichick's perspective as a coach. I understood what he was saying, which is, I'm betting that a 38-year-old guy is closer to being shot than he is to winning another Super Bowl. So, as Al Davis used to say, better get rid of him a year early than a year late. Well, it turned out he was wrong about Brady, but he would have been right 9 times out of 10. From Brady's perspective, is the guy criticized me for 20 years. In his opinion, really didn't give him credit till after he was gone, and then basically contributed to making him leave. A move that initially he didn't really want to do. So I get it, I get it. I get that a lot more than I get the Kraft Belichick thing. Look, Kraft got what you got to fire him, which is inevitable for a coach. And okay, so Belichick didn't credit you or your family for giving him a chance. So I got to make sure everybody knows, I took a chance. So he did take a chance on him. He had owners calling him, including Art Modell, his former boss, telling him, don't do it. Yeah. So I do give him credit for doing it. It's pretty much as he described. But the rest of it, was more of a tribute to Belichick than it was to Kraft. Belichick figured out ways to create a dynasty, and he did. So I don't know. It's childish to me.
Yeah, it is.
In the end, the owners always win.
Yeah, I would say you gain nothing by getting into that tangle, that debate. You gain nothing by engaging in that.
Right.
Nothing. Hey, if you're thinking about a new vehicle,
and they were all good for each other and for a long time.
Yeah, you're right. Well, we know that.
Yes, I am.
Borges is going to be riding with Burt Bell cross country. But if you're thinking about a new vehicle, you just want to drive by yourself or with the whole family, go with Lobel and Lynch. Go see our good friend George Gray at George Gray's Lexington Toyota. We've been customers for years because we know that George Gray will treat you right. They're family-owned and operated dealership that we trust, and you can trust as well. Between Lobel and Lynch, I think, but our family, we must have at least a dozen cars from George Gray, Lexington Toyota. Go see the big wheel, we call him, George Gray, at George Gray's Lexington Toyota, 409 Mass Ave in Lexington.
Ronnie,
All right, anything else?
I'm sorry, one quick question, Lynchy, Ronnie. Belichick in North Carolina.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? And, just a quick answer. And, it seems so...
from the football perspective, they'll from the football side of it, it'll probably be okay. I just don't think it's going to work. What works is the Deion Sanders kind of guy who relate to him, or vice versa. North Carolina has never been particularly a football hot. It's a little easier now that you can pay the players, I guess. But I just don't think in the long run it's going to work. If he was, now I'm a bad example in some ways, but I have a hard time seeing Belichick going into the homes of a lot of the parents and relatives of some of these 17-year-old kids and winning the recruiting battle against Deion Sanders. I just don't.
What did your Lynchy? What did your friends say?
Kronk music playing,
I know.
Lynchy, what did your friends say from North?
No, my college roommate, who's from Watertown, he went to BC High, but he's lived in Charlotte, North Carolina, for the last 20 or 30 years, and he plays golf with a lot of high rollers at Chapel Hill, and the majority of them would like a mulligan in the hiring of Bill Belichick. That's what they feel. That's what he tells me all the time anyway.
Right. Yeah, I mean, his personality is not going to jive with what's required. There's a lot of backslapping and so forth that has to go on in college football because of the donors and all of that. A good quick example. Down at Texas Tech, there's some rich oil guy, or however he made his money, went to Texas Tech. And he's given lots of money to the various athletic programs. He decided 2 years ago he was going to turn their softball team into a national power because he was tired of seeing Oklahoma's women. So he gave $1 million to this girl pitcher. She gets into the finals, but they lose in the finals. He decides A, she needs a raise, gives her another $200,000, and B, needs some help and gives another pitcher another $1 million. So, that you think that guy is going to allow the coach to just blow him off? I don't think so. So that's the real problem. That's the problem.
All right, that was my question, and you answered it. You were fascinating, Ronnie. It's great stuff today.
Well, that's great. It's always a lot of fun. Always a few laughs, and I love your guest, Burt Bell. That's a great choice.
Thanks. Yeah, he was
just another plug right here.
He's quite a man.
Right here, up in Bell with Ron Borges, by the way, present at the creation. And there it is. That picture was shot, I think, at Harvard Stadium. I think that picture was cover was shot.
Harvard Stadium. That's right. Yeah. Where he still climbs the stadium steps every day.
He does, yeah. I know he does.
Well, it'll be Trump Stadium. It'll be named Trump Stadium pretty soon. But Mike, haven't you heard?
Pretty soon. Pretty soon. Pretty soon.
Won't be long.
Yeah. They've made Obama's picture disappear.
Don't get us started. Right.
We should do this again when the season. Yeah, once the season starts, we should do this again and see how they do.
Yeah,
It'll be.
Yeah, about halfway through, we'll see where we are. All right, Ron. Thanks a lot, Ron.
I feel sorry for Vrabel a little bit.
Yeah,
I was just saying, I feel sorry for Vrabel a little bit because he's really been put in this savior role. He's got he's got all the answers.
Yeah, he's already been anointed.
One thing they're going to do, and I'll tell you, I'll make this one prediction. Yeah, he's in the Hall of Fame already. The team. But one thing I can promise you this: they're going to run the ball a lot more than they throw it this year. A lot more. Whether the offensive coordinator likes that or not, they're going to run the ball.
I think I couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. All right, Ron Borges has been our guest, and make sure you catch us and follow us on unanchoredboston.com and subscribe to YouTube as well.
Thank you. Good job.
You can catch us on YouTube. See you next week, everybody.
Good job, Ronnie.
Guys.
Okay, Mikey, thanks for doing that.